G'day listeners, welcome to Bar Karate, the sailing podcast. My name is Jordan Spencer and we are here to talk sailing for another week. We have an amazing week, an amazing guest this week, so I better bring in my mates and get them all fired up. Welcome, Mr. Brett Perry.
Greetings, Exalted One.
Well, we are talking sailing, but proverbially the horse has bolted. Horse has bolted. One Tom Slingsby is just nailing it in terms of how many listeners are coming in. And our guest tonight, could he be the one that catches the slingers?
That's an interesting challenge. I like it. Let's bring in the other bloke and have a discussion.
He had a voice that could make a wolverine purr.
Mr. Nick Boyce.
Fired up indeed, men.
Fired up?
I'm fired up. Not only because it's been a fantastic weekend away. We're allowed to go camping here in SA now.
So you
we managed to, literally managed to go camping. But this week's discussion, and to follow on from what you've said there, BP, is this going to topple Slingers off of his perch?
But he's firing. Slingers is firing. The episode is going bananas.
Yeah, very, very good. But I reckon this could be the one, if any.
Mind you, I've got to say that the whole lot is being dragged up with what's going on. So it could be a tough one for Nath to catch up. He's starting on a massive handicap.
Well, we haven't announced him yet, right?
Oh, yeah, that guy.
That's Jordan's job.
Sorry.
All right. Well, our guest this week is an Australian sailor. He is the skipper of the Japanese team in the Sail GP. He has a gold from the Olympics in 2012, a silver from the Olympics in 2016 in the 49ers. He's got 6 world championships in 49ers and Moths. Didn't quite get the qualification for the NACRA 17s, although looked very close to winning those worlds, ended up coming second at the recent worlds. 3 ISAF youth gold medals as well, so that's another 3 world championships on top of that.
Forced me into retirement?
Forced you into retirement? Well... Well, he just made you feel so bad about your own ability. You said, "That's it, I'm done."
There's just no chance. I'm not keeping up with this bloke. I'm out of here.
Lucky I've got a bigger ego than that. It was. I don't know what else to say about the guy. He's an absolute legend.
He's pretty handy by the sounds of things.
Pretty handy, and has been argued. In fact, Slingsby did say probably the best boat handling skipper he can name. So. A pretty amazing guy. So anything else you guys want to add before we welcome?
Negative. Get him fired up.
All right. Let's welcome to the program Mr. Nathan Outteridge. Yeah, thanks again for joining us, Nathan. It's good to catch up again, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, doing well, thanks. It's good to have a chat with you guys and, just waiting to go yachting again.
Yeah,
aren't we all?
Right, so let's get the biggest rumour. I don't know if you know, or you do know. You listen to our show, the secret pro news that's out there. Bicey, do you want to hit him with the secret pro news that we've got?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the secret pro of the week. I think it was Dixie Normus that particular week. Who the rumour was Dolts has got you signed up for the next cup.
I would love to receive a phone call from him.
Oh, God. So you're saying we can't trust Dixie Normus from now on?
No, I'm sorry. Dixie Normus is inaccurate. If Dolph is listening to the show, I can definitely have plenty of time to receive a phone call right now.
All right.
Okay, we'll pass.
We'll work on it. Yeah, we'll work on it.
There you go, Dixie. Unfortunately,
and Dolts.
Dixie sources aren't correct at this point in time. But Dolts, pull your socks up, mate. Pick up the phone.
Right.
Actually, you're not far. It's around the corner. So maybe just go and knock on Nath's door. That might be the easy thing.
Yep, easy.
That's where I'm meant to be.
That's it. All right, well then, so there was big news just the other day that Sail GP, which is your puppy at the moment, she's shut down for the year. How did you hear about that one, mate?
It's kind of been grumbling along for a little while, to be honest. Basically, we've been having regular calls with Russell and the Sail GP staff trying to work out when it's going to be safe to begin operations again. And I think with the way that the entire world's sort of handling the crisis right now, even though Australia and New Zealand are sort of on top of it, going to Europe right now is sort of hard to happen. So Russell met with all the CEOs last week, a few days ahead of the announcement, and said, look, this is what we're going to go with, and basically, no racing for the rest of this year. Sydney events null and void, and we'll kick it off in April once the America's Cup is over and starting up in San Francisco.
Right. Geez, there's a few things to unpack out of that statement. Go on.
So did you, like you said, it was kind of kicking around for a while. Did you have a gut feeling that's the way it was going to end up anyway?
Yeah, I did. Once they cancelled the Olympics and, you look at a lot of the other international sports and, when I heard that, all the boats had been sent back to New Zealand after Sydney instead of San Francisco, to get all those assets, to another event in the future was quite a long lead time. So you'd have to commit to going to Europe, whether it was Cowes or Denmark, probably in May, like this month, to make something happen in September.
Yeah.
And I think, just a few individual chats with Russell, he kept saying, look, we want to make sure that when we do get it up and running again, it's going to be a good event and we can commit to it. And trying to do something in 2020 just was really going to be hard to put together. Whereas, you look at 21, high chance, everything will be, maybe not back to normal, but, sport can get up and running again then. So he was sort of saying, look, let's spend this year to make the event better behind the scenes so that, when we do get out and racing again, it's better than it was in Sydney. It's just gone.
Yeah.
So that was a bunch of meetings to do all that, obviously, to make the meetings better as well, as we discussed earlier.
Yeah, you've got to have meetings to organise meetings.
As we discussed, yes. Yeah.
These Zoom meetings or Google Hangouts or whatever you call it, been churning through the data on the internet, that's for sure. Someone's making some money somewhere, I think.
Hey,
that's what it's all about.
I got an idea, though. Like, you got the boats in Auckland. You got enough of the sailors in between Australia and New Zealand floating around. You could do a little match racing thing just between two boats if you were getting bored. You could actually go out and have a bit of a sail that way.
Yeah.
I'd love to. They're not the cheapest boats to get up and running. And
I was going to say, it's not like get them on the beach and sort of wheel them down with the cat trailer and push them in the water and off we go.
Yeah, but, in all seriousness, I think what is going to happen is there's going to be some upgrades to the boats. They've obviously got to repair that damage to the French and Spanish boat. So, the boats will get fixed at core. But there's a lot of talk right now about, improving the boats, making the light wings. And there'll be a bit of testing, I'm sure, that'll happen with the boats at the end of this year. And, hopefully we'll actually get to do some training. Training would be fantastic, particularly for us with a bit of a new crew now. It would be really good if we could get a few weeks on the water before we start racing next year.
I'm guessing also post last season, the job list would have been pretty long. Not only the job list, but the dream list of every change or upgrade you wanted to do to the boats. And then as time goes by, this is a good opportunity to actually just get the boats fully cocked.
100%. Like we all know, like, the boats in season one weren't perfect. There was a few gremlins in the boats, whether it was software or a lot of mechanical parts were not perfect in the daggerboard case areas. There was quite a bit of wear and tear in that area. And they tried to do the best they could in the short space of time they had over the summer while building, another boat. But now's a chance to really sort of revamp that. So it'll be a bit performance that they'll improve, but a lot of it will be from a maintenance point of view, making the boats easier to put them together, pull them apart, more reliable, which I think, is important when you're shipping these high-tech pieces of equipment around the world. You want to make sure that, they're quite robust and, they're redoing all the wiring looms again and all that sort of stuff. So there's plenty of money and plenty of time, allocated to the boats, that's for sure. It's not leave them in the containers and let dust build up on them, that's for sure.
Does the we'd spoken about this previously on the show, but does the tech side of the boats, like the more technical or easier, not easier to sail, but just the flight controls and everything, does that bring the teams closer together? So you're not kind of more seat of your pants like last season would have been?
That's the goal. I think the goal is to make the boats. I think the number one goal is to make the racing interesting, right? You know, everyone wants to see every team having a chance at winning races. They want to see boats passing each other. You know, they don't want to see, you know, a very clear pecking order. And the harder the boat is to sail, the more likely you're going to have a big spread in the fleet as the experienced teams do better. Now, if we can make the boat a bit easier to sail from a flight control perspective, then it'll come down to more sailing decisions. And, you know, the boats are still going to be hard to sail. Like, you can never make one of these easy. But, you know, I remember when I was testing the boats, you know, because I was doing a lot of the sea trials in 2018, and these foils are quite a lot more unstable than what I was used to with Artemis. And I just sailed it for the first few days, and I'm like, I don't know how anyone's going to get these things around the race course. You know, they were so hard. And then we just spent 2 weeks basically just working on control systems. And there's actually quite a lot of computer-aided software in there already that makes the boats far easier than what they were. So by the end of it, those 2 weeks, I was like, okay, you know, this will be manageable for not everyone, but, you know, you can see yourself doing 50 knots without, you know, a full pucker on, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, copy.
Hey,
yeah, there'd be a fair pucker.
Without a full pucker on. Yeah, righto. Good on you.
I'm interested, you know, like you mentioned before in your little statement before about getting all the CEOs together. So each team is sort of set up as its own business effectively, is the way I look at it from an outsider looking in. If I'm intrigued, because it kind of seems to be all the skippers are the CEOs at this stage. I'm not sure if I'm quite right on that. I think one or two boats might be different. But so I got this vision of, you know, Russell hosting as CEO of the Sail GP, and then you guys all as your CEOs. And like, I'm wondering, is there banter about doing takeovers or just getting into each other? Like, is that where the real
management takeover?
Yeah. Do you get into each other or not?
There's definitely banter among, you know, the sailors. There's a couple of CEOs of teams that aren't sailors. Like, I think the Danish and might be
French.
Are not. Yeah, I think Bruno's running the French team now. Yeah. But basically, when Russell set it all up, his goal was to try and give the sailors a bit of an opportunity to do more than sail. You know, to have a crack at managing people, and you know, have, you know, a chance at trying to find your own, you know, sponsorship money, and because sailors typically want to go sailing and want an unlimited budget, right? And they just want to think about performance and winning.
Sounds
and
good
Russell's
to me.
like, you know, that's great, but you know, that's not really sustainable. So he's sort of given us this opportunity to manage our own budgets, to find our own money, to manage some people, and if we do a good job and excel, you know, there's quite a lot of incentive there from a financial perspective as well.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's the best. It's the best version of any event that's been put together, because it is genuinely trying to create a global sporting event that people are going to be able to sit down and watch on TV, and it's funded. So you are literally sitting in. You're going to end up like owning. It's an effective, if we get it right, and 50 years down the track, it'll be like owning an NBA team or something like that, you know, like that's the vision, I guess.
Exactly, that's the vision. Is right now Larry's underwriting the event and the teams, and the goal is that the teams start to become financially independent, and, you know, they're sort of franchises, I guess you could say, and at some point, you know, you'll be able to buy the team, you know, whether it's the CEO buys the team or you get a bunch of investors to buy the team. So short term, it's about raising money and sponsorship and getting people to support the teams. And then from that, it's about, you know, really taking charge. And it's a bit hard because there was a lot of traction happening at the beginning of this year. And this whole pandemic has sort of slowed things down a bit. So it'll be interesting to see how the economy of the world recovers and how we actually go of getting it going again. But I think one of the best things that we've got going for us is that a guy like Larry, is committed to making it happen still. Had we have been like, say, Formula One, kind of dependent on the sponsors and the owners of the teams, we could be losing a lot of teams right now. Whereas I think
they're in all sorts. Yeah.
Well, they're in a lot of trouble, and right now, we're not relying heavily on TV rights income and all this sort of stuff to make it work, which is good and bad. It means that, we can weather the storm and get things up and running again next year.
Are you enjoying that commercial side of it? I mean, but before you answer, I know working alongside Mark Turner with the Ocean Rate or Volvo, and he was a big advocate, and it sounds exactly the same as Russell, was pushing the sailors into the commercial side. And what's going to come out the back of this, not only teams like NBA and what have you, but you're going to have a whole bunch of really good sailors who've had the experience both commercially and running teams on big teams as well. So are you enjoying that side?
It's been a massive learning curve. It's always been a part of sailing that I hadn't had a whole lot to do with before. Like, as I said before, I come from Olympic sailing where you get your government funding and you manage your little budget and you go sailing and it's all about performance. And the Cup was the same for me. I didn't have to worry about budget. So I think it's been really good for me to try and learn about all that. And it gets a bit frustrating at times because all you really want to focus on is performance. But if you can't get the team structure right and you can't get the budget right and you're overspending and you're not, making time to have sponsor meetings, you're never going to make headway. So it's like a transition, I guess, in a career. And I know, we can't sail for our entire lives, and it's going to be skills that are going to be really useful in the future. So the short answer is yes, I'm enjoying it, and I'm learning a lot. And what's really good is there's a lot of sharing amongst the teams, sharing amongst SARGP. So it's sort of a collective effort at this point in time to raise money. And so we've, working with IMG now is one of the main, they're an investor in the event. So we're having weekly calls with sales staff in Japan and a few other guys. So we've got a team of people, and I can't contribute too much because I'm not a salesperson, but I definitely can explain the sport to them, and I'm learning about how to, construct deals. And I think one of the hardest things for me is operating in the Japanese market, which is obviously a very difficult thing for me to do as I don't understand the language. And
I think we're all in the same boat on that one, mate.
No,
it's quite a distance for me to get to there. So lots of Zoom meetings, that's for sure.
Yeah. I laughed. Jordan and I sat in a Japanese meeting once. And 28 minutes after, we just walked out and looked at each other and what the hell just happened?
They give nothing away.
Going back a few years, Nath went up and did that Beijing stuff with the 49ers, and that was interesting with the Chinese. I'll tell you what. Same deal.
Cultures. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what you need, Nath? Like, just an idea for you, bud. Well, you've got some downtime. Any good sporting team obviously needs a nickname and a logo. Have you been thinking about that at all? Because we're willing to contribute.
You got some ideas for me?
Well, we could get the listeners to come in, because Team Japan. It'd be good if it was the Japanese buck-eyed peas or something, and we could.
No, I'm probably
the Beavers?
Suggesting it's probably not a great idea. You let either us.
But it's a good way to get some stories going.
But it would advance our marketing arm. It would advance our marketing arm hugely. I reckon we should get on it.
All the teams. And you know what you could do, Nath? So just to take it even further, next time you have a CEO meeting, we could put all the teams up, and then, you could just drop it on the other teams and say, oh, this is the name that everyone's decided. And, I'd be intrigued as to what everyone would come up with, say, for Ben Ainsley's team or the French, or the British team, like it'd be the Great Britain, the Soap Dodgers or something like that. We could run with that, or,
Well, I'm sure if you listen to the onboard comms of the boat,
there we go.
You'll find that there are secret nicknames for all the teams. That's for sure. It was funny when we were all putting the team together. We were in a branding meeting. How do we brand the team? how do we market it, and what kind of nature is the team going to be? And I put it to a few of the guys in the team and said, well, what are we? And someone said, well, we have to be the kamikaze something, right? and I'm like, I'm not sure if that's too appropriate. No. So I think
should we look that up on Wikipedia?
I think we ended up settling on the Silent Samurais.
Silent Samurai.
I'm not sure about.
Yeah. I think there's an east. There's an east wind or something that's got a good name in Japanese. I can't remember what it is, but what we'll do, Nath, if you're keen, we'll put it up on our Facebook and see what the punters think.
I'm sure we could get some interesting responses. I don't know. I can't make any promises that we'll use it, but if it's good enough, I'll put it to Russell.
There we go.
And we promise you, we'll only show 10 of Jody Shields' suggestions.
What about Joe Turner? Can we screen his ones?
Yeah, Joe. Yeah, no, only 10 of Joe's as well to start with, and then we'll filter it down.
Hey, did you listen to the episode when we had Slingers on? Did you listen to that one at all?
Yeah, I did. Yep.
Yeah. So he wasn't completely nice here. He put the boot in a couple of times. Should we set it up so you can? I mean, he genuinely was obviously nice. You're good mates, clearly, but there was a bit of fun stuff going on. Shall we give you an opportunity later on in the interview just to put a few back?
Right of response.
Right of response.
Yeah, absolutely. We could play back some of his comments, and I could have a nice rebuttal for
him. Okay. We might have to do a bit of editing to get that done.
You might have to refresh me with exactly what he said, because sometimes I just don't listen to what Tom says.
No, well, in all honesty, he reckons you're the best. He genuinely said he reckons you're the best boat handling skipper out there. He was pretty open about that. And I've sailed against you a couple of times, and my observation, I've led you to the top mark a few times, and then just watch you go past downwind and just going far out. You've got something special. You've definitely got something special in the way you sail a boat. It's very unique. Have you known that? Do you feel that yourself, or you just think you work harder than the next bloke?
Well, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it. And
that's right. It's just a statement, mate.
I think what it sort of comes down to is how comfortable you are in the equipment that you're using. And so, like, the more you spend in the boat, the harder you push it, and the closer to the edge you're happy to sail. And we know in these foiling boats, whether it's a Moth or these 50s, if you can get it nice and high and keep it on the edge and have in the 50 a good team around you, you can push it quite hard. So sure, yeah, I feel comfortable in the boats, but I also last season had Goobs and Parker, who were definitely making my life pretty easy as well.
Yeah. We need to probably talk about that at some stage, that whole, because they've gone across for the British America's Cup team. The traders, yeah.
Is that how you refer to them now?
Is that what we can say?
The traders?
Yeah, two of my best mates are now my traders, yeah.
They've ridden on your coattails for all these years, and now they're cashing in.
Well, I guess money talks, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, is the relationship still their best mates or not?
Well, while we're at the event in Sydney, Gooby asked me to be one of his groomsmen at his wedding. Good. So I think we're still...
You said, no, mate, come on.
Still pretty tight.
I said, so long as you don't tackle me this weekend, we'll be okay. They ended up being so far ahead, it didn't matter.
Oh. Well, okay, so you had to sub in with your Sail GP team. I wanted to move away from that a bit, but you had to sub in a few. So you got Leo, who's changed role from a grinder to he's the flight controller. He's just made the team for Japan in the Olympics. So young lad doing well. You got another couple of, and Leo is probably the most New Zealand Japanese bloke I've ever met. And then you've got
true,
yeah, and then you've got the Australian Japanese guys. Is it Tim? I think is it Tim?
Tim, yep. Tim Morrison.
And then you got the rower, your Japanese rower, who looks like he's a pretty serious dude. And then you sort of had to go and pull out of the bottom shelf Aidan Menzies, who you sailed back in the youth era with. And if Aidan, if you're listening, it's only jokes, mate. But you sort of You had to pull him out of the bed. So how's this new team? How's it working for you? You know, like you got to bed in a few guys.
It's a huge challenge. Let's to be honest.
Carrying Aiden around the track.
Yeah, well, I carried him back in the day, and I'm carrying him again. Aiden and I, we grew up sailing together as kids and did 2 youth worlds together before I was sort of sailing with Goobs. And he sort of has dabbled in and out of the sport a bit, but recently I got him back involved at Artemis, and originally as, to help with the sailing team, but he's so bloody handy on the tools. He ended up, on the shore team running one of the boats. And when we were putting the Sail GP team together, I knew that Goobs and Parker were only on a 1-year contract with us. They had, the cup commitments with Ben. And so, they said, look, we can't do season 2, but we can kickstart the team with you and train everyone up. And so Aiden was always in line to trim the wing in the second season. So that was always planned in the background. And basically, so Gooby was working with Aiden on the wing for the whole season, tuning it in the shed and on the rib. Aiden had done quite a bit of sailing in Bermuda, so he knew the ropes. He just sort of hadn't ever done a race. He'd just done a bit of training and stuff. And then Leo, he's only just turned 21, like he's just a little kid still. Stepped straight into flying the boat after season 1, and he's done a fantastic job. We had to begin our training in Sydney as if we'd never sailed the boat, so we sort of took it back to the basics. A lot of teaching with Aiden about getting the flow on the wing so that we can accelerate in the pre-starts and where the apparent wind sits and how to take off on an upwind angle or a downwind angle. And while we were doing that, I was doing a lot of the flight stuff and Leo was observing. And then once Aiden got his head around the wing, then we sort of started training Leo up onto the flight control. So I think we got a total of 7 days on the water in Sydney. And it was only by about day 5 that we were starting to link manoeuvres up. So we were pretty stoked with 3rd position in Sydney. And, we could have done a little bit better here and there, but the thing that held us back really was just we had terrible starts. I don't know if you noticed, but we were either over or we were like 3rd row. And that just comes from a bit of an experience with the 3 of us trying to get everything perfect. I'm so used to having 2 guys who are 100% on their job so I can focus on mine. So there was a lot of sort of job sharing and it's not so easy on those boats to get everything perfect.
Wow. Yeah.
Sure. No.
Oh, okay. Right,
I was concurring to the concurical and just writing some notes here, and we're going to talk about when we get to the Olympics. So just if I don't come up with it, remind me.
Yeah. I like that, Bicey. That actually looks almost professional.
Let's talk about I really want to start out, like one of the things we try and do on Bar Karate is try and get more people in the sport, right?
Yep.
Now, you grew up in that sort of amazing sort of starting ground that is Lake Macquarie, where some of the best sailors in the world have been produced consistently year after year after.
Yeah, I believe it's called God's Country.
Everybody.
Bravo.
Slingers mentioned something
second behind Port Lincoln.
Slingers mentioned something about some sort of power plant or something.
Yeah.
He was really on that.
Down Wanji way.
Station. It's really, makes you want to stay out of the water.
So how did you, like, you're a sailing family, like, I know that because I've met your folks. You started so that was it, you're on a boat at 3 years of age, is that right?
Yeah. I was probably on a boat much younger than that, but I started. Dad bought an old Timber Manly Junior probably when I was about 3, and on the weekends in summer we'd just go down to the park and I'd have windsurfers or a boat and we'd just sort of go sailing around and get the feel for it. And he was pretty clever. He only picked nice sunny days with a whole lot of wind at that kind of age. Otherwise, I'm sure my mum would have killed him. But I just was surrounded by the lake from a very young age.
Yeah.
The whole family just was involved.
And for those who don't know, because you're a Wanji boy, aren't you?
Yep.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Wanji, it's pretty much the perfect location. If you're a kid coming home from school, you could have your house and then you've got the beach and then you've got water. Like you literally could run out the backyard, no cars, step onto a boat and go sailing. It's pretty much it's such a simple little place to go for a sail. It's easy to.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Like as a kid growing up, like I started sailing down at the local sailing club when I was 5 in the Sabos. I did my apprenticeship in a Sabo. I think it was 6 years sailing 2-ups and then 2 more years in the 1-ups there. So did my time in the bathtub. And, when I was at school, I remember catching the bus home and, the bus just snaked around all the different peninsulas, looking out on the water and seeing windsurfers out there. And you saw Chris Nicholson out there a lot when he was doing the 18-footers or the training and the 49ers. And when I got into high school, I'd just be studying the wind the whole time. And by the time I got home, I knew which sailor was going to rig up on my windsurfer. And I'd just grab all my stuff, walk down to the water, and I'd just go out until basically sunset whenever it was windy.
Yeah.
And just sail every day.
Sounds a dream.
Sail every day. You remember those days when you didn't have to worry about earning money or it's windy, so I'm going sailing. What am I going to go sailing on? Well, I've got a few different options, and you just pick your option, whether it's your boat or whether it's your windsurfer. And if there's no wind, you go for a paddle or something. And I bet we all wish we could be still doing that.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about Wangi is if you do stuff it up as a little kid, generally it's a nor'easter and you'll get blown back onto the beach at Wangi. So you know if you're a parent, you've got low worries. The kid, the kid will wash up on the beach. And
that happens so many times. I remember. Good story. I was out there in the middle between Fishing Point, Cold Point, Wangi Point. So it's like the center of the lake, big black nor'easter, and my universal joint breaks.
I was going to say the universal,
Moths, right?
Yeah.
And so, I've got this decision, no life jacket, obviously. I've got the sail that's sinking and I've got the board that's drifting away. Which one do I pick? And so stupidly, I thought, well, if I let the sail go, then I can't go out tomorrow. So I held on to that. So the board just shoots off downwind and, so that's gone. So here I am in the middle of the lake swimming with this sail and all my mates are out as well. And they're all just going past me, just back and forth, having a great time. And one of the kids' parents that must have seen me and they, got the tinny in the water to come and rescue me. That was 45 minutes after, it had detached, and so I managed to get within 100 meters of the shore by the time they came and rescued me. And the whole time I was just freaking out about getting eaten by a shark.
Yeah.
If I had been in Port Lincoln, I'd be dead right now. I was on Lake Macquarie in the good old days when there wasn't sharks, so it was fine. I just walked the waterfront and found the board. It was sitting out the front of someone's house. Picked it up, went home, and
it's actually not a bad decision in the end.
Yeah.
Because
then you could go sailing.
You're a thinker.
I would have been screwed if I had gone with the board because I didn't have any money. I would have been just
lost the rig, everything. Yeah. So
I tell you what, at the time I was wishing I went with the board.
I bet you were. So during those times, though, what or who inspired you, or was it just going fast and just wanting to keep going fast?
Yeah, I think initially I just loved the freedom that sailing brought. What I was sailing at a very young age wasn't really fast boats like Sabos, and went into flying 11s. And I did a lot of sailing with my mum's dad. He had a North Shore 27. And so I'd do morning racing, right, with the Sabos at Wangi. I'd quickly get driven around to Toronto, which was a couple of, it was like 10, 15 minutes away, jump on Pop's yacht, do the race with him, annoy the hell out of him, just asking him questions and wanting to trim the sails, which would wear the ropes out, and, we'd have to buy new main sheets and stuff. But that was what I did, as a young kid. And then as competition kind of grew, as I got a bit older, we started just travelling throughout New South Wales to different events. And I quite liked, the meeting people, and I quite liked beating people. I liked really beating people that were older than me. That was a lot of fun. And just had some great times, and it wasn't probably till I was about 14, I think it was. That was 2000 when the Olympics came to Sydney that I started to see a world outside of Australia. Like, obviously I watched the 18-foot skiffs on TV, and that for any kid growing up in the 90s was the dream, to sail an 18-footer and to have a sponsor like Skilled or Prudential and be one of those guys that are out sending it.
Sure.
But then the focus for me shifted a bit to the Olympics because the Olympics came to Sydney. I went down most days to watch it, and on the days that we didn't drive to Sydney to watch it, it's a 2-hour drive, so it was a bit of a commitment, for the family to go and sit on one of the headlands to watch the sailing. And on the days we weren't down there, I remember we were in the shed, putting together a new boat for the season and listening to it either on the TV or on the radio. And that's when I started to think, I'd love to start, racing internationally, and 49er was definitely the class I was looking at, right back in 2000.
Well, Chris would have been sailing on the lake a fair bit, wouldn't he, as well? So you would have seen that going up and down.
He was out training a lot, and, that school bus ride home, I could see him out training, and I'm just like, man, I've got to finish school early so I can get out on the water.
It was almost blueprinted, right? That's what you're saying.
So just one thing. So, Jordan, you actually are inspiring.
Why?
Inspired Nathan. Well, to beat old blokes. And he clearly did that.
Get stuffed.
Actually, don't laugh because, and you probably don't remember this, Nathan, but I think one of your first sails on the harbour in a 49er, I was sort of campaigning my 49er, and I actually retired after you did your first lap. That was it. I walked away. I said, there's no chance. I'm gone. We sailed out of Wallara. You came down.
You inspired BP to retire from 49ers.
Yeah. No, you came down, and we did a training camp. I don't know if you remember the names, but there was the Irish guy, Michael
O'Shea.
Michael O'Shea, yeah. It was myself, and there was a few blokes out there, and that was it.
Probably Warwick Rooklin and Nigel Whitwood.
Nigel Whitwood, there we go.
Yeah.
So, that was my first and last sail against you. So, thank you for helping me retire and move on.
So
for helping me save a shitload of money.
Yeah, you're welcome.
No, it was a pleasure. It was actually quite incredible. It was great. It was a great day for me to go sailing. I didn't retire. I did keep sailing. It's all right.
The question becomes though, like, what do you think it was that made you such a standout? What do you think you do differently, or why have you got this sort of ability? Is there anything you can think of, or do you want to keep it secret, or?
To be honest, it's nothing really mind-blowing. It's just I like – there's a few things I like about sailing. One is that there's sort of no such thing as a perfect race. Like, I always look at every race, you make plenty of mistakes. So it's he who makes the least mistakes will usually win. And so I just love going out sailing. And from a young age, I remember just always trying to make lots of mistakes, because that was how I thought I would be able to learn. And, from the junior days, having, pretty good coaching support, not on a daily basis, but we'd have, sabo camps or flying 11 camps. And you'd get like 2 or 3 of those before the Nationals and a couple after the Nationals. And I just remember like always wanting to beat everyone else in all those training races. And I remember, I had my little notebook. I made lots of notes about, what all the coaches were saying and just trying to learn. I hated learning at school because I just didn't see it being relevant to what I wanted to do.
It's hard to
but
learn.
I loved learning about sailing because...
Hard to learn while you're looking out the window, looking at the wind.
Well, I was just, at school I'd be, studying the trees and, it's 11:30 and the wind's come in and, all right, things are cooling down. And I'd sit there at school and say to the person next to me, do you smell that? And they're like, what? And I'm like, I think it's about to rain. Yeah. And they're like, how do you know? And I'm like, I can smell it. And then 5 minutes later, it's pissing down outside.
Good work. I love this.
So I don't know. Anyway, on a tangent, but with sailing, I just remember just always wanting to get better. And when I was growing up sailing, we had a really good group of people at the local yacht club. We had, a couple of good families that were into traveling as a group, and the Jensens are one of them. So Goobs and his brother Matt and their family, and we had the McAllisters and the Hodges, and we kind of went everywhere as a family, 4 or 5 families. And then, that meant that we linked up with a bunch of families from Sydney and Gosford and, Joe Turner and their family. We spent a lot of time with them. And then you start becoming friends with the guys you sail against, and then the banter begins. And then you want to be better than the guys around you. And you grow up in a generation where people love sailing for what it is, and they push each other all the way. And then when it got to about 16, was when it started to get a little bit more serious, when that international competition was beckoning and the chance to go to Youth Worlds. And, I just just did what I guess most sailors do at that age, just go to these events, do the best you can, and if you can be the best, you get an opportunity to go overseas. And it wasn't until I went to the first Youth Worlds with Aiden in 2002 and we won the Youth Worlds in the 29er. That was when it changed, and that was when Victor Kovlenko gave us a call and said, boys, congratulations. What are your plans for the future? And I said, I've got no idea, Victor. I want to sail a 49er, but, I'm 16 years old and I weigh about 60 kilos or 57 kilos. And he said to me, would you like to sail the 470 for a couple of years and join our program and work with, at the time it was Nathan and Malcolm, Nathan Wilmot, Malcolm Page and Jenny and Belinda. Jenny and Belinda had just won a gold medal 2 years before that. So we got this amazing opportunity to join the 470 Olympic team, the little squad, and be in the inner circle for a couple of years. And that's where I learned a lot about international Olympic sailing. And we sucked in the 470, let's be honest. We never made a gold fleet. Plenty of stories about, thinking that we were, half decent in a 470 and rounding the top mark with 2 boats behind us and passing a couple. But what we learnt was about how to put a program together. And as soon as I transitioned into a 49er, all of that Olympic learning had kind of already been semi-ticked off, and we were, on a path straight away in the 49er.
Mm. Just going back a couple of steps. So back to the Sabos and the 29ers before the kind of the, call it even state or national level.
Yep.
Growing up in your local yacht club, were there kind of mentors or the older crew or older sailors that help drive you and inspire you through because it's one of the questions we've been asking, like how do you keep people inspired in sailing at that kind of stage between, the 12 to 16 years old?
Well, in the early days, it was all parent driven. So our sailing club was mostly junior sailing, and the adults were sailing keel boats. There wasn't really a scene of adult sailing in the afternoon. That later changed, and there was a few guys sailing OK dinghies and things like that. So it wasn't. It was a good fleet, but it wasn't like your top international fleet. But it came down a lot to my parents. My dad was quite a good sailor in 505s and went to many world championships around the world and sailed a lot locally. And he sailed at Toronto Sailing Club and grew up in the era when Chris Nicholson was winning 505 world championships, and there was a whole bunch of them. The Kerwoods were building the boats there. It was a fantastic group of sailing. And I remember my first Sabo Nationals was at Mooloolaba, 1992 or 93 maybe. It was pretty young. And I was there with Mum, and my brother and sister were quite young. I must have been like 6 or something, 7, maybe 6. And Dad was at Royal Queensland Yacht Squadron sailing 505s the same week. So here we are living in a caravan at the Mooloolaba, and Dad's down in a nice air-conditioned apartment with all his mates. That was the last time he ever did any racing. Mum was like,
left you with Mum.
Mum was like, if you want your son to keep sailing, you got to show up. Mum with 3 kids in a caravan in the middle of summer in Mooloolaba, not so much fun.
Yep.
So basically, Dad took it on and he sold the 50, and he said, right, we'll help Nathan as much as he wants. And if I didn't want to do it, then I didn't have to do it. And that's how it worked at the sailing club, and that's how all these families worked. And I said before, we were going to events around the lake, Gosford, we go up to Taree, spent a lot of time in Sydney. And I remember we'd be at events or training and sleeping in the clubhouse at the Vaucluse 12-foot skiff sailing club. 6 or 7 families with sleeping bags and air mattresses, all, in the club. Wake up in the morning, go for a swim out the front, then you trample sand through your bed and stuff like that. And then next weekend you're at Hunters Hill Sailing Club doing the same thing with the same people. And it just became a really, really cool environment to grow up in, those Sabo and Flying 11 days. And the friendships that I made back then, still existing today.
Well, it's pretty cool. It's just going sailing is effectively what you're sailing, and just keep putting yourself in competition is what I'm hearing out of it. Yeah,
we had a good balance between local club sailing as a kid and a bit of a travelling circuit, that parents were committed to. It wasn't daycare. It wasn't drop your kid off and then pick them up at the end. It was, mum and dad would be there, and they'd support you. They'd run the canteen at the regattas, and mum and dad still do that. Like mum, every time I'm back in Wanji, she's, sorry, it's Saturday. I can't
down the club, got to run the canteen.
Down at the club, all the ladies are down there in the kitchen making the salad rolls and whatnot, and dad's running the racing, and they just love it. And I think if we want to keep growing the sport, parents have got to, be committed and be involved. And once I got to about 18 was when I got my car license, and I said, well, you guys don't have to come anymore. And they still come. They were in Marseille at the final last year. They were in they came to the UK to watch Haley and I sail.
You weren't living in the club rooms in sleeping bags and blow up mattresses, were you?
No, we weren't. But I'm sure Dad would have looked at the finances and gone, actually, we really should be trying to
let's have another look at this
out here or something like that.
Look, they're nice club rooms here. Yeah. Next to the toilets.
Speaking of finances, as a kid, you're growing up, you're looking at the trees, you're smelling the rain coming. Did you actually ever think about a job, or was it always going to be sailing?
Well, my dad's an accountant, right?
Right, and you were going to go down that path?
No, but he knew a thing or two about money, and he reminded me quite a bit. He's like, now, Nathan, where do you think the money comes from to buy all these boats? And I'm like, I don't know.
The trees.
you just get it, right? But one thing he did.
Is that what I smell from the trees?
Yeah, exactly. Money grows on trees, right?
That's it.
But my original plan was to go sailing, and before I knew that sailing was an expensive sport, right? And I remember Dad saying, well, you got to work out how to pay for it. And I just thought, okay, well, a job's going to suck because then you can't go sailing. You can't do both at the same time, right? So then I tried to look at jobs that were going to give me the most holidays. And so, and I got this idea from Dad because he's an accountant, right? But he, at this point in time, when I was about maybe 10 or 12, maybe a bit older, 14 when we were talking about it, he transitioned from being an accountant, in an accountancy firm to teaching accountancy.
There we go.
And the reason why he'd done that was that he wanted to go sailing over summer, and he wanted to be able to take the kids places on holidays. And so he worked out, it's 10 weeks holiday a year. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll be a teacher then. So that way I can work and pay for my sailing. And that's kind of what I ended up doing in the end. I didn't, study to become a teacher, but I did a lot of coaching growing up as a kid. So that's how I funded a lot of my sailing from about 15, 16 years old. After I'd won a couple of nationals and state titles, I got asked back by the Sabo and Flying 11 class if I could do some coaching. And, I think the first payday I got was $70 for the day. And I thought that was unreal.
Yeah.
And then it slowly grew to a bit more. And I ended up doing, in the end, I was coaching most weekends and sailing during the week, particularly when I, finished school. So, and then I, I've just been really lucky at the time that I got involved in sailing and Olympic sailing, and how the funding ended up working out, and how all of a sudden, I'm heavily involved in professional sailing now. But, back in those days, there was no real plan to be a professional sailor. It didn't really exist. And the pathway to get to it was not so straightforward. I kind of just fell on my feet as I stumbled along with some good mates like Tom Slingsby and a few others from Australia that just found ourselves in the right place at the right time. But, we put a lot of hard work into being good sailors, and then took opportunities when they came to us.
What about on the tools, mate?
Well,
Bicey had to paint the deck to become a traveller.
Well, I think Nath gets on the tools.
Shop, and then Dog last week, he had to be a metal worker to build the docks to get on the America's Cup teams, and so about yourself?
Well, the good news is that no America's Cup team has ever asked me to get hands-on on the team. They probably have a fair idea of what skippers are like. But back in the day when I was younger, because Dad's an accountant, he would never pay for anything he didn't have to pay for. So,
it was actually a good answer because I was going down this path. Go on, good.
So back in the day, my first boat was a second-hand boat that we got, and it was from the local boat builder at the time, and so that was a great boat for me to learn in. But then Dad went through this process, and I understand now, but at the time I didn't. I just thought that. And I don't know how my mum, allowed it, but he would buy a brand new boat every year for us. But it would be a shell. It would be absolutely nothing on it. And he would sell the boat and we'd put together a new boat every year. So we get to August or September and we'd get a new shell, just a sabo, and we'd get a bag of fittings that he'd get from Bob Fussell, who was the
drill
sailmaker. And we had the old drill, not the battery drill, but the
wind on. Yeah.
And had the vise and the hacksaw out, and we would basically fit the boat out. And that was our winter project. And we'd rivet everything on the mast, and we'd take the boat round to Fussell's and we'd get the sail to fit, and that was our pre-season sort of testing, I suppose you'd call it. And we'd sail, and Dad said, if you do really well, we can sell the boat for a good price and we can get you another one next year. So basically every year I got a brand new boat that I'd put together, and, we just had this process of building boats, which was quite...
Yeah, and your old man made a shitload of money out of it.
Dad was making money.
That's slave labour.
It was a scam.
I wasn't complaining. I was getting a new boat each year. I'd never get a new sail. He would always say we'd sell the package and we'd get another one. And I'd be like, but the kids in Sydney, they're on their third sail already this year. And he's like, no, you don't need that. And I'm like, I just get slower all year long.
Wow.
But it was cool. And then we moved into Flying 11s and we did the same thing. And there's plenty more fittings on those. Then we started getting involved with the boat builder, John Dean, who was building Flying 11s and modifying, the centerboard case location and jig tracks. And, so from an age of like 11, 12, I was into...
On the tools.
On the tools. And I was into designing stuff as well. And I didn't really know how beneficial that was going to be at the time. And then the same when we got into 470s and even 49ers, like you could buy a 49er mast, I think it was for $4,000, fully done, right, back in the day. Or you could buy the components and you could save $1,000 and you could put it together yourself with all the rivets and...
That's a no-brainer.
Oh, absolutely. When you had no money, that's what you had to do.
Yeah, that's it. Well, your dad would have looked at that and gone, oh, that's absolutely necessary. You could do it that way.
Exactly. And Dad is like, can I help? And I'm like, I remember when you messed that one up last time. I think I'm good now.
So onto the 49er, you won the gold in London. You went in 2008 with Ben Austin, I think it was, back in those days, fifth from memory. And then you won gold and then silver the next year, where you got beaten by a couple of Kiwi blokes. I can't remember their names, never heard of them since.
I don't think they've done much since then.
Yeah, no, they disappeared. Now, there's always been the rumour that you had some secret numbers and you sort of let those numbers slip on the 49er. You had some secret rate or set up numbers, and you gave them across to those backsliding Kiwis who took it off.
The K1s.
Yeah, the K1s.
Well, that's 100% true.
Right. So all those Kiwi medals are yours, is what you're saying?
No, they're not. I'm pretty sure they changed the numbers for Rio because we used the same numbers, and man, we were not as quick as them. But it definitely was a case of keeping your enemies as close as you could to you. And at the time, I could see Pete and Blair had a lot of talent and a lot of ability. And in the lead up to London, they were pretty green to the class. They had a lot to learn. Still, they'd only just started. But being good blokes that they were, and I remember Nathan Hanley introduced us to them and brought us over to New Zealand and said, can you coach them? And I said, contract won't let me coach them, but, with the AST contract, but we could set up a training partnership. And that lasted for, over 3 years. And it was fantastic, developing with those guys. But, as soon as we'd won the gold and they won the silver, they were hungry to go next step. And I think they realized quite quickly that, if we kept working together, we're both going to keep, learning. Whereas if they went down their own path, they might get a chance to overtake us. And that's what happened in the end.
Right. I mean, you guys are still good mates, though, aren't you? That's why we sort of had this theory that you're going to sign up to Team New Zealand. You guys are still pretty tight.
Yeah, we are good mates. Yeah. And,
they're good guys.
Both Pete and Blair, they're great guys. And I think what happened was that as soon as the Olympics finished in London, I was on a plane to San Francisco and quickly got involved with the America's Cup, which rolled into another America's Cup campaign with Artemis, with Goobs joining us as well. And so we no longer lived in Australia. We were living effectively with a suitcase for like 4 years. We would just travel to wherever we needed to be to sail. So whether it was San Fran to do testing, whether it was Bermuda to do testing, and most of our 49er sailing was done at events. So, had we have tried to organise training with Pete and Blair, it would have just been extremely difficult because they joined Team New Zealand. So now we're like fighting each other for America's Cup secrecy and fighting each other in the 49er. So there's no way a calendar would have worked to work together anymore. And neither of us, really approached each other about trying to train together because we just knew it was never going to really work. But out of all of that, there's a plenty of respect between the four of us, and they sailed fantastic that entire campaign, and they truly deserved the gold medal. And I think that looking at how we approached it, we didn't dedicate as much time as we did to the London campaign. We probably weren't as hungry as what we were leading into London. When you've never achieved it, you're doing everything you can to win. Whereas when you're trying to go around a second time and you've got, a high pressure job in the America's Cup, we were sailing the 49 because we loved it. We loved the competition, and we knew it was going to keep us, being one of the best sailors in the world. Had we have just said, no, we won't do Olympic sailing, we'll just be in Bermuda, we'll just do carp sailing, we wouldn't have done a single race. Like Pete and Blair and Goobs and I were going into combat regularly in the 49er. And then so when we got to the America's Cup, we were probably two of the most polished teams when it came to racing and having all your instincts, ready to go.
Well, because you would have gone up against, you did actually, you went up against each other in the Louis Vuitton, the battle, the final for the Louis Vuitton. It was between Artemis and Team New Zealand. So
yeah, and I think that was some of the best racing. It was definitely better than the Cup itself. Team New Zealand were a long way ahead of Oracle in many areas, but we could challenge them. We were getting ahead of them on the starts, and there was plenty of exciting racing. I think you look at the data and it probably shows that their boat was a bit quicker on average, but we could compete with them and had some great racing.
So before we go on to 2020 Olympics, going back to
2021 now, right?
Yeah.
Well, correct. It was 2020. 2012, when you won gold in London, I remember watching a clip where you guys got brought into the studio with Carl Stefanovic.
Yeah.
And he was blown away. It was like Carl had a man crush on Goobs. Did you end up going out on the piss with Carl in London?
I didn't, but Goobs did disappear one night, so they might have. Goobs was probably so dusty at that moment he didn't even know that Carl had a crush on him.
Yeah. That was good.
That whole Olympics, the last few days was definitely a bit hazy.
Oh, well imagined.
I think Slingers mentioned something along the lines of that as well.
Yeah, so much fun. So, well, then I guess we have to talk about non-selection, mate, with you and Harley. That must be, first off, sailing with your sister, like you guys sort of, are you enjoying that? Is it tough? Is it fun? Is it the best thing you've ever done? Like, do you like that Nacras?
It's been a really good journey. Like sailing is a big thing for our family. My brother's heavily involved in a lot of the media production and videos and that. And my sister Hayley was growing up, she was into sailing, but she sort of went through a phase where she thought netball was more fun than sailing, and eventually turned around and came back to the sport. And, around 2012 was when the FX was introduced straight after those Olympics. So she took
That's
on
right.
the FX. And so she did a campaign for Rio, sailing with Nina Curtis. And, in the end, Australia didn't send anyone. They were probably not the top team, but there was 3 teams that were pretty close. And
That's
so
right.
Hayley was sort of thinking about, well, do I sail the FX one more time and have another go for 2020, or what do I do? And in the end, Nina decided, look, I don't want to do it. She went and did the Volvo Ocean Race and came back and said, no, I think I don't think I'll do any Olympic sailing anymore. So Hayley was sort of at a point where, well, what do I do? And I just joked and said, oh, well, maybe you should try sail the NACRA. And at this point I was, in Bermuda, or maybe just left Bermuda, shaping up to do another cut with Artemis, which eventually didn't happen. And when that didn't happen, Hayley called me and said, well, why don't you come and sail with me? And so we were able to borrow a boat from the AST, and we did a couple of days sailing and thought, oh, this boat, foils, that's pretty cool, that's fun. And then had a chat with Ian Murray, who was running the AST, and he said, well, what do you guys want to do? And I said, yeah, we'd be interested. We'd be interested to do some training here in Australia. So we spent January, February, March doing a bit of training with Jason and Lisa, and Bundy was coaching. And we were actually swapping back and forward positions. We didn't know who was going to drive because, Hayley's never crewed, and the NACRA is quite physical at the front. And so there was a lot of talk of Hayley driving and me crewing, and I made sure I did a really bad job at crewing because there's no way I'm doing the hard work. I hate getting blisters on my hands. I hate going to the gym. I just like holding a stick and going fast. So that sorted that out quite quickly. And, off we went. We bought a boat and we headed off to Europe, and we got support from the Federation, which was fantastic, and came second at the first Worlds that we entered, and missed out on winning by a point, and we never even got to do the medal race, so we were a bit disappointed by that, but at the same point, it was pretty impressive. And I just said to Hayley at the beginning of 2018, let's just do a year. We've got some funding allocated to us from AST. They think that we have what it takes. Let's see where it takes us. And if we come top 10 at the Worlds, then we've got something to work with here. So, we kind of overachieved. We thought it was going to be a lot harder than that. And tell you what, it got a lot harder than that a few months after that when we started, really getting into the nuts and bolts of the class. But it's been a fun journey. But, yeah, unfortunately, never got selected. So we'll never know, if we could have won another medal.
That was go on, Boss.
During that whole process, was that a surprise, or it was known that the selection point was going to be, there was going to be a cutoff at a certain time, or how'd that whole process pan out? Well, we know how it panned out, but getting to the end result.
Yeah, the selection, the way it works with AST, it's the same with most countries. Basically, unless you're, at a certain level, they won't consider you for selection. So we had to meet like a bit of a baseline performance criteria, which was around top 5 at a certain selected events. So if you do that, you go to the Olympics. If 2 teams do that, it becomes discretionary. And so that's where it gets quite tricky because the factors are unlimited. They could base it off your on-water performance, mostly focused on Japan-like conditions. They could base it off World Championships. They could base it off what you do in training sessions. They could base it off how you perform, what your experience is like in other classes, what your Olympic success has been like in the past. So it was pretty vague. And we looked at it and thought, okay, the events that we thought were going to be important would be the 2 world titles, so the Auckland Worlds in December 19 and the Geelong Worlds in February in 2020, plus the events that happened in Japan throughout the quad. And so we targeted to perform in Japan at the World Cup event, and then the following 2 events were our targets, and all other events that we competed in were just training events because obviously my time was a bit limited with SAR GP commitments, and I had a young boy, in January 19. So, having a little boy, really, really is quite time zapping, and want to be there to spend time with him, and then doing all the SAR GP stuff. So Hayley and I knew that we wouldn't be able to train and sail every day together. So we had to be targeted in which events we wanted to perform at. And so, we got a 4th in Japan, and we had I think a 13 at the Worlds in Auckland. We qualified 2nd, but we actually just had a bad finals. And then we came 2nd at the Worlds in Geelong. But we had a massive lead going into the medal race and threw it all the way there. So so I don't know what the selection committee, what reasons that were that they picked it, but in the end they chose Jason and Lisa over us, and that's that.
So Jason's on the Australian Sail GP boat. Do you guys hurl abuse at each other across the water? Or?
It's pretty hard to do that at the speed you're going at. Yeah, exactly. But
Doppler effect.
It's quite funny, Bicey. Well done.
All last year they were talking about the rivalry between Nathan Outteridge and Tom Slingsby in SAR GP, and Tom and I just laughed because we couldn't really care. Obviously we wanted to win the end result. But Tom just keeps saying, surely your rivalry is with Jason, not with me. Right? You're trying to go for one spot. You're trying to put 2 into 1. And, right now we're having a great time on SAR GP, but surely it's with Jason. I'm like, yeah, well, if you could just ruffle his feathers every now and then and crash the boat or something, that'd make help for you.
So actually, that's one thing you can confirm our chat with Slingers. I asked him whether you guys had an arrangement to split the prize money and work as a bit of a team to both get you both there. And he clearly denied it. Can you confirm that is the case?
There was no way I was going to give Tom any money.
Yeah, he pretty much had the same reaction.
Yeah. It was heartbreaking when we lost, more so that Tom won the money and we didn't. And, because, man, we've had some banter over the years, and Goobs and I and Tom go way back through all the Olympic sailing together. And, yeah, Tom was very much a gentleman about it. In the end, he was very gracious in his victory. But shit, if it had been me, I would have been rubbing it in pretty hard.
Oh.
So did he take you out and give you a few drinks and sort of do it like that, or what was the?
Well, on the last night there was a big party for all the teams, and he had me basically in a headlock at the bar, making me drink shots all night with him.
Well, that's
whether
not
he was
rubbing it
paying
in
for
much,
it or not, I don't know who was paying for it, but yeah, he definitely bought me a drink. Let's put it that way.
Well, Russell did.
Now we've pushed, or Bicey particularly has pushed on Barkarati for an urgent requirement to step up the interaction, the way you speak about each other on Sail GP. Do you want to go through it, Bice? It's your program.
No, just it's definitely the marketing team have obviously at some point in time rung you up. Hey, Nath, we've got Ben Ainsley joining the Sail GP. Can you maybe just give him a little bit of banter or give him some sort of a welcome? And Slingers comes up with, I don't want to fall in the water in Sydney with the sharks or some bullshit like that. And it's like, maybe it's time to bring back some good old-fashioned boxing banter.
Bring back the biff.
Bring back the biff. And so I'm calling for it to reintroduce the biff back into Sail GP. That actually there's some real banter that can get the crowd like really aligned with one team or the other.
Yeah.
Like if you get the crowd thinking someone's an absolute dickhead or get the crowd thinking someone's an absolute legend.
If Ben joining you, instead of saying, like Tom saying something about, I hope he doesn't get eaten by the sharks, you said
great
something.
Respect for Ben.
Yeah. More like, the man is not worthy of washing my underpants. That's the sort of stuff that we're looking for.
Oh, so what you're saying is you just want us to say what we really think.
Exactly. A bit of trash talk.
Not what the script says.
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty much. Apart from that script, like you can almost see holding the phone. What am I meant to say? Yeah.
This is
Bit of
what
trash- bit of
Barkarati.
trash talk.
It's one of our minor projects we're working on, but we actually do want the truth in sailing. The truth in sailing. That's it. Say what you feel.
I think the tough thing is that you get asked these questions and they're so lined up in a way where you if you say what you really think, you're going to look like a bit of a dickhead, and no one.
Yeah, no, we know.
So someone's got to start
We're
it,
hearing
and then
you.
the banter begins. The moment that the sailors interact with each other, it's good. So maybe they need someone like Bicey there, just really geeing everyone up.
That's it.
Just behind the curtain, just giving it a little poke.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're working on, the Barkarati commentary team. So we'll work on that. And, once we're in the door, Nath, it'll grow from there.
Yeah, perfect.
Hey, one question for you, but outside, since before you had the family, anything you like doing outside of sailing?
Windsurfing.
Yeah, well, now that I love going windsurfing. I love being on the water, and pretty much all I ever did was sail. And when I had a bit of downtime, I didn't really know what to do with myself. I get a bit.
I know exactly what you're saying.
So you can imagine what lockdown's been like here.
I was going to say, rephrase that question. So now that you're not sailing, what are you doing now?
Well, so it's really interesting right now. So in New Zealand, I don't have a boat to go sailing on. I have a Moth, but it's a long story. But we ended up buying a house here in Auckland that doesn't have a garage, right?
Oh.
So that's a bit of a sticking point. I got we got a house at Wangi, and I've got a huge garage there for all my toys. And we're over here and I don't have any. So sticking to board sports now. So I went and bought one of those foiling sup boards with a little wing.
Oh, yep.
A wing foiler, yeah.
Yeah, a little wing foiler. So I bought one of those straight after Sail GP. When we found out we weren't selected for the Olympics, I was like, right, I need toys like now because four Sail GP events for the rest of the year, and the rest of the time I'll be twiddling my thumbs. I need to get on the water. So I justified it somehow to the missus and said, this is, for the greater good, which she agreed to, and that was fantastic. So I got that and flew it over to New Zealand. So got on that a couple of days, and then it was becoming quite obvious that some form of lockdown was about to begin. And I went up actually with Glenn Ashby and looked at the wind foiling national titles that were being held in New Zealand. 55 foiling windsurfers racing up there, and Jody was there talking crap as always. And I ended up having a chat to Aaron McIntosh while I was up there, and he said, you should get one of these. You'd love this. And I looked at it and I just thought, it reminded me of early Moth days when everyone's just into this new cool sport. So 4 days later, I went to the shop and bought one of those as well. And about 3 days later, the whole country went into lockdown and they banned all water sports.
Yeah.
So I had a month.
Oh, shit.
I had a month with all my stuff inside the house, and I'd put the foils together. I'd look at them. I'd pull them apart.
Pack them up.
I'd rig up the sail in the backyard. Okay, yep, no, that's a windsurfer sail. That's great. You pull it apart. And so ever since we've shifted from level 4 to level 3 lockdown in New Zealand, I've been on the water every day except I think last Friday because there was no wind. And I've just got skin missing off my hands everywhere. I've got skin missing off my feet everywhere because I can't actually do it. Like I'm good at foiling boats where you sit down, but anything that you've got to balance with your legs and actually hold stuff with your arm.
Can't do it.
Rubbish at it.
Right. Did you get here we go. Did you buy the class that's the new Olympic sailboard one? Are you going to the Olympics as a foiling sailboarder?
Well, there is no stock available of the new Olympic stuff, so I bought the closest thing I could to it, the full starboard package.
Yep.
And after it's the cheaper version. It's like the youth or the junior version because I figured get something a bit more robust. And who knows if I can work out how to foil on my feet, and I can develop some fitness to hold onto the sail, could be a new challenge coming up.
So 24 Olympics, you could be there as a foiling sailboarder, or there's nothing to say you couldn't be there as a double-handed offshore racer. Is there? Is that a possibility? Or you're too young?
That's not going to be me.
Quick answer.
I can definitely tell you right now that me and offshore sailing are double-headed. No, I've spent one night on a boat overnight at anchor. And that was great. But yeah, not much.
At anchor. Yeah, very good.
Awesome. Hey, team, we're going to go way over time. I'd like to keep going for a few more hours, but I think we might have to start winding it down.
That's becoming a very familiar phrase with these conversation sessions. So we just keep talking. But
my favourite thing about you, Nath, is you won the 49er World Champs in 2009, and you came second in the 29er World Champs in 2009. I know it was different crews, and I know what you're doing, but I just think, if you were looking just at the numbers, the results, it's
something doesn't add up.
Basically, I stepped down to the junior class and didn't win. Well, the people who beat me were 49er sailors, and the people behind me were 49er.
That's right. I know that.
The most important thing about all of that was that Goobs came third, and I beat him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I do remember that. So Steve Thomas and Blair Chook actually beat you.
Yes, they did.
Yeah. And I think you were sailing with, was it Lauren Jeffries?
Yeah, I was sailing with Lauren Jeffries, my girlfriend at the time.
Yeah, and Goobs was with Haley, yeah?
Yeah, Goobs was with Haley.
Yeah.
We had a very good match race on the final day, and Haley,
you basically took him out.
we took him out, and Haley hasn't forgiven me still. Still brings it up to me when I'm on the neck.
Last time you talked, after that was when she asked you for the next campaign.
Yeah, exactly.
For the NACRA. Awesome.
All right, mate. Well, we might call it quits there. I've got a feeling we could probably go for about another 4 or 5 hours. There's plenty we haven't even touched on. There's so much. We haven't touched on the Moths. We haven't touched on anything. But hopefully you've enjoyed yourself.
It's we'll save it for a second episode.
Yeah.
I was going to say we might have to go for round 2 when maybe some more interesting things happen this year. We can talk about that as well.
We got some special plans coming up, Nath.
Actually, don't say
we've got. I won't tell you what it is, but we got into doing this podcasting nearly a year ago, and now every bus and their dog's coming out and having a go. But we've come up with just probably the greatest idea in podcast history ever.
Easily,
possibly the greatest idea in the history of the world.
You think Jody talks shit? Listen to these blokes, will you?
No, we've got an idea.
I'm assuming you're not going to tell me now, but I'll definitely be waiting.
That's it.
Don't you go outside.
Eagerly anticipating.
I'll be just scanning social media.
No, you'll be involved. We'll get you in for one of the sessions. You'll love it, mate. You'll love it.
No, we'll probably forget to put it on social media.
Oh, yeah.
We'll probably even
pretty
forget what it is.
like that.
We'll probably forget what it is.
Just importantly, though, we are going to put up, shall we put up on the Facebook, definitely, we got permission.
What's the best name for?
The nickname for Team Japan and what their mascot should be, yeah? Can we do that?
I'd love to hear what our Japanese fans have for us.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We'll put it up. No worries, mate. All right, well, we'll leave it there, I think. It's been a ton of fun chatting to you, mate. We're looking forward to it for weeks and weeks and weeks, and now we've done it. It's been as good as we hoped.
No, it's good to chat. No, it's good to reminisce of the good old days when we were once out on the water. So hopefully we'll be all out there again soon, and look forward to seeing you guys around the traps.
Good on you, mate.
Cheers, Nath. Thanks.
What a bloody great discussion that was, boys. I absolutely loved that. We got a lot to unwrap about that one, but, geez, it was good, wasn't it?
A lot to unwrap, but as we're saying, we're going to need a second episode.
Yeah.
And maybe we can go back to him at that point in time after we've got some names or some suggestions for him.
Yeah.
For the nickname for the Sail GP team.
Yeah, I think our little idea too. I think we'll get him as a special guest on that one.
Well, I think it has to be Slingers and him, doesn't it? Together.
Yeah.
Hey, that'll bring the banter back. Let me tell you.
But more like bring the sledge.
Yeah, I might start writing the banter for them.
Pure genius, BP.
Look out for the sharks, Nathan. There's lots of sharks in the harbour.
Oh dear. So that was all pretty cool. It's really we're just starting to get back into sailing again. I think for Australia and New Zealand, things are starting to happen a little bit down here. So not too much is happening. Bicey, you've been out on your new boat, obviously.
Yes, caught it wasn't. I didn't bag out on whiting. Put it that way.
No.
But caught a few. Caught the first fish.
Literally a few.
Yeah, three.
Cool. All right. Anything else you guys want to bring up over the week that's been going on?
Nah, just looking forward to the next step, I guess, as with everyone.
Yep, things are starting to ease, to use an old sailing term, but starting to ease into back to reality. Let's see.
I actually, sorry, Jay, we were talking about it today. I was out having a little yacht around, and I believe that the 4-day week is going to be mandatory as of now. That's
no, I'm going 3. Calling it.
I do want to bring up one quick thing, though, boys, just to mention. So we will be throwing up on our Facebook page where you can nominate your nickname and what the mascot should be for Team Japan, and that'll get straight back to Nath. The other one is we're going to go for we've got another week of voting on the T-shirt thing. It's been overwhelming, the response. We've got 1 million responses.
We've got the team behind the scenes working on the data correlation.
Yes.
Yeah, we do.
Can't believe how many they've just called me up all day saying how busy they are.
Yeah. All right. So
one of those third parties I've hired it out to again.
We've gone offshore.
I suspect it'll be me, to tell you the honest truth.
We've got a team in the Philippines organising
it. Yeah. Anyway, so that's there for another week. So keep jumping on, or if you haven't jumped on yet, jump on and have a look at the shirts. They're a few levels down in the Facebook page.
10 to choose from.
And just tell us which one you like, and we'll be going with them first. The most popular one gets published first or gets produced.
Here.
Cool.
Love it.
All right, gentlemen. Thanks again. Been good to catch up as usual.
Catch you later.
See you, listeners. We love your work.
Can see